70-80% of your immune system resides in your gut. And the good bacteria, so when you eat foods that are probiotic, you're nourishing that good bacteria, the microbiome of your gut. And it really does, when you have lots of good bacteria, it helps to fight essentially the bad guys. Good bacteria helps to modulate the immune system. Good bacteria helps to make immune boosting nutrients like different B vitamins. Bacteria makes vitamin K2. So it also helps to modulate IgA and IgG, immune cells, B cells, T cells, the inflammatory response. So everything that you can do to support your gut microbiome by eating foods that feed those microbes, then it's a really good thing you can do for your immune system.
Hey friends, welcome to the HealthSimple Show. I'm your host, Kyle Reedhead, and I interview health and wellness experts from around the world to help you live healthy, happy, and stress-free. Now don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and if you have any questions about anything we talk about throughout this episode, just comment below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Enjoy the show. So welcome to episode number 36 on HealthSimple Radio. I'm joined here with Joy McCarthy, who is the founder of Joy's Health. She's a certified holistic nutritionist, as well as a best-selling author. So Joy, welcome. Hi,
thanks for having me.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you for joining. And because it's fall and many of us are dropping, down and ill with the flu, Joy and I were discussing, and we thought it would be a valuable conversation to discuss some tips for the cold and flu season to help everyone out.
Yes.
It's a very timely topic right now. We were just discussing the weather in Toronto here anyway. Every day that we wake up, it's dark,
I'm missing my sunshine vitamin D.
Yeah, exactly.
It really makes such a difference.
Well, on that note, why don't we start here? What is it about this time of the year that makes us all sick? Are there actual mechanisms that we know of for sure that cause us to become ill?
Well, there's a bunch of things. Well, first of all, we just spend more time indoors and being inside. Like in the 1970s, architects actually came up with a great idea of really sealing buildings in. So this whole revolution of buildings having better insulation, having better windows. And actually that was the same time that sick building syndrome developed. I don't know if you've heard of it, so sick building syndrome developed when people were in buildings that were really sealed up because of concentrated infection and bacteria and viruses. But the other theories are as well is that the microbiome, the bacteria that was inside the building and the good bacteria outside of the building, there was no more exchange of bacteria. So the bad stuff couldn't get out and you couldn't bring good bacteria in. So if we fast forward to today in 2018, in the colder months and in the winter, we spend so much more time indoors. And we're just exposed, a lot of us work in an office environment in a cubicle. Like I know myself personally, I used to work in an office where everyone would just get sick because you're just passing the germs on. So I think that's one factor. We're inside a lot more. Another big factor that really affects your mood as well is just not enough vitamin D. Living in Canada and being in a more northern climate, we have shorter days in the winter, the fall and winter. And we have less sunshine, and when we're not getting that sunshine hitting our bare skin, this affects our immune system because vitamin D is really, really important for our immune system. And of course, you can take a supplement, but I just really feel like there's nothing, quite like the sun. And there's lots of good research actually to support vitamin D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely love being out in the sun. In the summer, I try to take advantage of it as much as possible. I get out there with my shirt off anytime I can because it makes you feel amazing. It makes you feel vibrant. So,
well, I'm glad you said that too, that you take your shirt off because you want to expose as much skin as possible, which is obviously harder for women unless you're going to a beach. Mm-hmm. But, that's one thing, all throughout the summer when I was taking my daughter to summer camp, I would always, like, if it's a sunny day, tank top and shorts and just totally expose myself to the sun. But of course, you have to be careful, because if you're really fair skinned, then there's finding that happy medium between not burning, because my skin, I do burn, but I know myself, and I know, how much exposure is okay for me. And then of course I can kind of build up that exposure. But there have been studies that have shown that getting in, just taking like 800 IUs of vitamin D per day, although most people need more than that, can reduce the incidence of colds and flus by up to 70%. Wow. So I don't really take vitamin D throughout the summer, but now I'm taking it every day. Like right now, I'm probably taking about 5,000 IUs because I just naturally, I've had my vitamin D tested, and I recommend everyone do that, which is why I take that amount. So, for the people listening, your listeners here, when it comes to vitamin D and knowing how much to take, I do think it's important to, in Canada or in Ontario, it costs us $36 to have it checked. So get it checked, and then talk with your certified nutritionist or naturopath to find out how much vitamin D you should be taking.
Good point. And it probably makes sense to, if you're going to get it checked in the summer, then you also need to then get it checked when, in the fall, and see how it changes as well, because
it's a really good idea.
It's going to give you a different reading in the summer when you're actually out there in the sun getting your vitamin D. Now, is there any research about just the fact that the temperatures get a little bit colder, or it's just more damp outside? Does that have anything to do with our immune system, or why we're getting sick?
Yes. Yeah, well, I think definitely people who suffer from different autoimmune diseases are definitely more affected by damp temperatures. I don't personally know. I think it is just an old wives' tale, unless there's research I don't know about, but I think it is an old wives' tale that when you feel chill, that you will get sick. Because, our grandmothers have always been telling us, make sure you bundle up. But I actually think it is good for the body to experience temperature changes like that. It's good for our metabolism, and I think that's actually good for our immune system. So, there's basically research to prove every point you believe. So if there is research out there that says that, I just don't know about it. But, if you want to talk about other factors that lower the immune system, I'm happy to go there as well.
Well, I do. But first, I love what you just talked about of the cold and kind of the shivers there, because, we live in this world now where we never really get out of our comfort zone. When it gets hot out, we turn on the AC and we stay at the same temperature. When it gets cold out, we turn on the heat. Or if we're going outside, we throw on coats and we bundle up. And we literally stay at the same temperature, throughout the entire day. And if you're not working out, you're not exercising, you're going to the gym, again, you're not raising your temperature. So you stay at sort of that homeostasis at all times. And there is a huge benefit to changing temperature. There's a lot of research that shows that it produces, endorphins and helps to produce and balance your hormones and so many other things that are beneficial to your health, to your mood, to your immune system. I do cold showers every day.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you do that. I'm a wimp. I can't. I talk about it in my second book, Joy's Detox, because it's a good way to stimulate detoxification, but I don't actually do it that often.
I love it.
Good for you. You do that. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. You just feel so amazing afterwards. So, I know I get it sucks and it takes some time to get used to it.
So what do you do? Do you do like 1 minute, kind of 1 minute cold, or the whole time cold?
So it depends. I try to do the sauna first, and then I'll do just straight cold as I can. I'll do my whole shower that way. Sometimes I'll go back and forth. If I didn't get in the sauna first, then it's really hard to do just cold shower the whole time. So I'll usually jump in when it's hot, and then I'll start to slowly turn it cold.
I actually thought it would be harder to, like, if you've been in the sauna and then go into the shower. I almost feel like that extreme would be harder, but you're saying it's like if you just jump into a cold shower, it's easier than.
I just think that it's easier because you're already super hot, and then when you jump into the cold, it's not as big of a shock as you'd think, because your body temperature is just so hot that it's slowly kind of getting to that cold. Whereas if you jump into a cold shower and you're already a little bit chilly, it's like trying to jump into a cold pool when you're not warm, right?
Yeah.
It's difficult. So, but anyway, I love it. It changes my day. If I do it in the morning, it just it wakes me up, and it makes you so lively, and it helps to fight stress, all that kind of stuff. So, there's a lot of benefits to it, but I get that it's not an easy thing to.
Okay, you're like giving me motivation to do this, because I tell other people to do this, but I hardly, you know what, I'm going to, tomorrow.
Yeah, good.
Tomorrow's the hair wash day, so tomorrow I will do this.
Perfect. Awesome. Now, okay, so let's go back to other areas that can affect the immune system then. You said you had a few more topics there.
Yeah, totally. So stress is a big one. Having like, it's not like acute stress that's the problem, you know, doing a speech or anything that gives you a short-term amount of stress, that's okay. Like exercise increases cortisol, and that's a stress on the body, but then it helps the body balance cortisol out overall. But chronic low-grade stress is terrible because cortisol interferes with the immune system's ability to work properly. It suppresses lymphocytes, for example. And also chronic stress increases inflammatory chemicals. And when you're in a constant state of inflammation, this lowers your immune system. So, you know, sometimes there's not a lot we can do about the situations and the stress in our lives, but what we can do is have, you know, positive stress management strategies. And I'm sure you talked about that on your podcast before, but one of my favorite stress management strategies is going for a walk in nature. Like I'm really lucky. I live like close to a really big park, and every day, twice a day, I go for a walk. And it just really makes me feel good. I love the fresh air, and that's so like stress busting for me. And then of course there's lots of adaptogens as well. I'm drinking a very anti-inflammatory tea that has turmeric and ginger and cardamom, which is all very good for helping the body combat stress and keep the immune system strong. So I would say stress is a big one. People always get sick when they're stressed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you find that for yourself.
Oh yeah. As soon as stress starts to, you know, kind of creep up, that's when I start to feel either sickness coming on, or just, you know, you start to feel a little bit achy. You can feel that inflammation is starting to build up. So, I mean, stress management techniques is so important. It's a tool that we all need to have in our tool belt. But I think many of us just kind of go without and just don't realize that it's a thing. They just kind of let the stress take over and do its thing. So, yeah, I like that a lot. Now, if we're talking preventing ourselves from getting sick, are there certain things that we should be doing, you know, before the cold and flu season starts up to prepare? Are there things that we should be, you know, doing for our bodies to, you know, even while it's in the fall to kind of prevent it? What do you got for us there?
Yeah, I'd say let's start with talking lifestyle first, because of course there's lots of supplements and there's lots of foods, but I think establishing good sleep hygiene is really, really important, and having that all throughout the year. Because I feel like 2018 actually was a funny year. I feel like because with a lot of the like fluctuating weather, you know, having those extreme hot days, and so many people were sick, it seemed like all throughout the year. So I would say establishing good sleep hygiene, because studies show that people who, you know, get like 6 hours or less of sleep are actually more prone to the cold and flu. When you are sleep deprived, this reduces your natural killer cells, which are part of your immune system. And as well, just like having a lot of stress, lack of sleep definitely increases inflammatory cytokines, so inflammatory chemicals in the body. So what I suggest to people is you want to figure out what your sweet spot is with sleep. 7.5 to 8 hours, depending on, like, if you're an adult, 7.5 to 8 hours is kind of like ideal. Because, and if you are someone, like a lot of people say to me, well, you know what, Joy, I feel like I can't get to sleep early, or I feel like I just can't get a good restful sleep, then, you know, what I would say is looking at the things that are preventing that person from sleeping. Are they drinking too much caffeine? Maybe they drink 1 cup of coffee per day, but they're not detoxing that caffeine effectively. It's staying in their body longer. I'm a perfect example of this. If I drink caffeine past, say, like 12 noon, it will absolutely affect my sleep. I'll be lying in bed at like 12:30 at night, you know, counting sheep, wishing I could fall asleep. So sleep is really key in getting into a deep, restful sleep. Another quick thing is that people who don't exercise do not get into a deep, restful sleep. You need to kind of wear your body out. So, you know, every day do something. I know, Health Canada for Kids recommends like 60 minutes of physical activity every single day. And how many adults are getting 60 minutes of activity? And that doesn't have to be like going and running on the treadmill. Like, that's so boring. Well, for me, it would be boring. If someone else enjoys that, then do it. But just like really do something that you enjoy, which is, the key thing. So what were we talking about? Things that like can increase the immune system?
You got it. Ways to prevent.
Oh,
actually,
wait, okay.
I just want to say, I wanted to add to that. And that's a good point. You do want to sort of wear your body out, because that's what's going to allow you to get into a deep sleep. And it's not just about quantity of sleep. So 7 to 8 hours, it's quality is so important. And so having those sort of sleep hygiene techniques, we can call it, before you go to bed is huge for helping you fall asleep and staying asleep and getting deep. So, blacking out your room so you're sleeping in darkness, not in the city lights, right? Turning off your devices before bed and, hours before bed, which is something no one does. I even struggle with it. I mean, I try to have a sleep hygiene routine. So, and then along with the exercise thing, even things like changing your temperature throughout the day can help sort of wear yourself out, because it's a stressor on the body as well. So kind of going back to what we talked about, those are things that can sort of help wear out the body and likely allow for better sleep. So
this is why I'm such a big fan of going for a walk. Even I walk my daughter to preschool every day. And even last winter, I would go, so my like breaking point was -20. If it was colder than -20, then I would drive her. But beyond that, like, that's really cold. We had many days that were -15, -18. And it is so true what you say, like, get outside in the winter. Like, we live in Canada. We can't just like stay inside the whole time. Get outside. You will notice that you are more tired. It really does wear the body out. And that's so key about having a good quality sleep, and all those things you mentioned, 100% I agree with. And not eating late at night as well, because when the brain detects a lot of food in the gut, you don't secrete melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. So, that's another thing. But, sometimes it's just moderate lifestyle adjustments. If you're someone who works till 9 o'clock and you don't get home till 10, then maybe, at work you take a break a little later and you have your largest meal, say maybe your largest meal is at 5, and you have just like a smoothie when you come home. So there's lots of adjustments you can make.
Yeah. And by the way, for anyone listening that is, let's say in Florida or Australia or California, you should hopefully understand our struggle up here in Canada with the cold winters, which means that you have no excuse to not get outside and go for a walk.
No excuse whatsoever.
If Joy's doing it in -20 weather, then you have no excuse.
Yeah, you can do it too.
All right, so let's go. I don't know if you have any other tips for preventing sickness.
Okay,
let's dive in now.
As a nutritionist, like food, I don't know if we were going to talk about food at all, but there's lots of foods. So when it comes to preventing sickness, I'm all about, let's focus on ways to boost the immune system. And so, there's so many different foods that we can eat, and then also foods to avoid. So just very quickly, avoiding the standard American diet, avoiding processed foods, refined carbs, sugar, alcohol in moderation, because alcohol does actually suppress the immune system. So, limiting those things. And then boosting there's lots of immune boosting superfoods I love, like fermented foods, kefir. Kefir is very high in good bacteria, like literally live bacteria. Kefir is a probiotic food, and your immune system, 70-80% of your immune system resides in your gut. And the good bacteria. So when you eat foods that are probiotic, you're nourishing that good bacteria, the microbiome of your gut. And it really does, when you have lots of good bacteria, it helps to fight essentially the bad guys. Good bacteria helps to modulate the immune system. Good bacteria helps to make immune boosting nutrients like different B vitamins. Bacteria makes vitamin K2. So it also helps to modulate IgA and IgG, immune cells, B cells, T cells, the inflammatory response. So everything that you can do to support your gut microbiome by eating foods that feed those microbes, then it's a really good thing you can do for your immune system. So kefir, sauerkraut, there's lots of foods that are natural health supplements that are fermented now, protein powders. You can buy different superfood powders, taking a probiotic. I make my own coconut yogurt. I make my own cashew cheese. So what I suggest for grownups and kids alike is to eat some form of fermented food every single day. Now, this is sometimes harder with children, but you can easily like mix in yogurt. With grownups though, adults, I'd say at least 2 meals a day, have something that's fermented.
And not your typical yogurt that you're going to buy at the grocery store. I won't say.
No, I mean, like, yeah, a lot of the commercial brands are so pasteurized.
Yeah.
You're not getting the benefits. Now, eating some yogurt is better than no yogurt, sorry. I had Danone in my head, which is a yogurt brand here in Canada and the US. But like kefir or good quality organic yogurt, if you are dairy sensitive, there are lots of fermented nut yogurts now. You don't have to make them, you can buy them. So there's lots of ways that you can support your microbiome. And there's so many benefits beyond just your immune system. Your skin is healthier when you have when you have good gut health. But there's a lot of research, about on the microbiome right now. There's a lot of scientists researching the microbiome, and it's still relatively new, even though scientists have been researching it for about the past 2 decades. But the information now is just exploding. Like the microbiome, our gut microbiome is as diverse as the Amazon forest. And we only know like this much about it. And what we do know about it is incredibly fascinating. So we need to make sure that we support our gut health by eating foods that nourish the microbiome, and also prebiotic foods too. And, a lot of people get caught up in like, oh, okay, I need to be eating like unripe bananas. No, you don't have to go crazy on unripe bananas, because for some people, those are disgusting. Like myself, I don't want to eat unripe bananas, but eat lots of plant-based foods, eat lots of fruits and vegetables, because prebiotics feed the probiotics, and you want to have a balance of both.
Awesome. The gut is it's just a fascinating topic, and there's so much to learn about it, but I absolutely love it. I try to have a gut, discussion on my podcast as much as possible, because every time I do it, you learn so many different things. Now, on the fermented foods and probiotics, can you overdo it on fermented foods? Or, if you're supplementing with probiotics, is it then potentially harmful to also eat a bunch of fermented foods as well? Or what are your thoughts there?
I wouldn't say harmful. I mean, there are some people who don't do well with fermented foods, like some people who have, particular autoimmune diseases or have, histamine intolerance. It's a very small percentage of the population that doesn't do well with fermented foods. And there is, something to say about someone who is candida. Excess yeast in the body, is it good or is it bad? Well, it depends on the person. For some people, eating a fermented food is going to benefit them, because the more good bacteria you have, the less that those yeast and fungi can proliferate. Some people have a bit of a reaction when they introduce fermented foods. They might feel gassy, bloated. Just give it a couple days. Don't go crazy 3 times a day with fermented foods. If you've never had a fermented food, start slowly. Add maybe a tablespoon of sauerkraut to your, Buddha bowl or your wrap at lunch. Slowly add a probiotic, like a 15 billion. Probiotic. So be careful. It's like when you it's like someone who's eating a standard American diet, deciding that they're going to eat more fiber-rich foods. You don't just all of a sudden start eating 25 prunes a day. You want to increase it slowly. So that's what I recommend. That's why I don't recommend to people to take a probiotic that's like 500 billion probiotic. I don't even know if that exists. But it's not always a numbers game. It's not always about having more bacteria. It's also about taking a really good quality probiotic.
Awesome. Cool. Okay. So we know that if we want to try to prevent flus, we need good sleep. We talked about that. We need to work on our gut and help support the gut microbiome, and we need to move and exercise. That's very important. Any other specific tips before we move on? Because I want to talk about, if we already are sick, what can we do? But if you have anything else first, really, we can jump on that first.
Yeah, I would just say like in the winter months, like it's just like listen to what your body wants to eat. Like I don't want to eat soups in the summer, but in the winter I'm making lots of bone broths and making my own soups. So I would say like listen to your own body's wisdom. What is it that you are yearning to eat? And those are typically foods that are going to be good for your immune system. Mushrooms, like mushroom soup in the winter, mushrooms contain beta glucans, which have an immunostimulating effect and actually enhances macrophages and natural killer cells. So foods that we can get locally can help to boost our immune system. So mushrooms and garlic and onions, making your own bone broth. If that's like too overwhelming for you, like go to your local health food store and buy some bone broth because it contains nutrients. The minerals are so bioavailable and it contains nutrients that really help to boost your immune system. There is research that shows that chicken noodle soup can help you prevent the cold and flu and help you get better. So those are just sort of my final tips. And last thing, make sure you eat enough protein because protein makes antibodies. Something that the vegetarians and the vegans really need to listen to because, you know, I know lots of super healthy vegans and vegetarians, but the ones that I've seen in my practice over the years that aren't healthy are just not getting enough protein. And you need to eat enough protein, whether it's plant-based or animal-based, it doesn't matter. You just need to make sure that you're eating adequate protein at every meal and snack to ensure you have a healthy immune system.
Love that. And by the way, for those vegans that are listening right now, spinach is not your source of protein. When I hear that, I get frustrated. It is not your source of protein. There's not enough of it in order to get enough protein. So spinach does not count as protein. Eat your beans or legumes or whatever it is.
Lentils. And there's like good quality fermented protein powders out there as well. You know, that are totally allergen free, and you can add those to your shakes and smoothies, and that can give you a good source of protein as well.
Love that. Okay, so now if you are sick, I know you said chicken noodle soup. We've heard for years. So chicken noodle soup. What other tips do you have if you do find that you're getting sick? Or you already are, and you can't get over it? What should we be doing?
Lots of recommendations. I am a huge fan of elderberry. Elderberry is like my go-to, and I swear that's why I don't get sick. But it depends on there's lots of elderberry supplements out there. I'm not just talking like elderberry syrup is great for kids who have a cough. But there are good supplement brands that have a really potent amount of the phytonutrients that are in elderberry. But elderberry actually has chemical compounds like phytonutrients, plant medicines that have an immunostimulant effect. So when you do get sick, taking an elderberry supplement can help to boost your immune system. And research shows one particular one I like is a New Chapter has a product called Elderberry Force, and it can actually reduce the duration and the severity of your cold or flu. Wow. So I am a really, really big fan of elderberry. And as soon as I feel like I'm getting sick, elderberry is a good one because it's not like, say, oil of oregano or echinacea. I feel like with those, you have to take it at like the onset of sickness, especially with echinacea. If you take it when you've already been sick like 10 days, it's almost like pointless. You need to take it like the second you have a scratch in your throat. That's why I like elderberry, because you can take it even if you've been sick after a few days. There's also, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a really good company in Quebec who is making certified organic elderberry syrup for children. And it's so great. I have it for my daughter. I've given it to her a few times when she's had like a bit of a cough. And it's really, really great. So elderberry is amazing. It's not cheap, like to buy a good quality elderberry supplement, but I keep it stocked because I know that it is fantastic.
Amazing. I don't think I've ever had elderberry, so.
Yeah, elderberry is amazing. And oil of oregano, of course, which I personally don't use. The only reason I don't, and I know that, you know, at the first sign of cold or flu, if you take it daily, it can definitely really, because it's nature's antibiotic. I just cannot stand the taste. I can't stand the taste. So for me, I don't personally do it, but something I still recommend because it is a very potent infection fighter. It's very anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, immune modulating. I don't recommend you take it beyond 2 weeks. I've met people who tell me they take it for the entire cold and flu season, and that's just crazy. Because what you want to remember is that oil of oregano is a natural antibiotic. Yeah. Antibiotics, what do? They kill microbes. So if you're taking it all the time, this isn't good for gut health. So short term only.
Okay. Use it like you would a medication, essentially. When you get sick or you're about to, then you use it. Now, another hack that I like to tell people to do, and it's funny to watch them do it, but is to just eat garlic by itself.
Yes.
Do it. Yeah. It honestly works. I've seen it work multiple times. So
I believe you.
Yeah. Now, one thing I wanted to get across with getting sick doesn't necessarily mean that your immune system is super weak, or you're weak yourself. I mean, getting sick happens, right? If you have certain bacteria or virus that comes into your body. What matters though is the length of sickness that you have. So if you can get over that sickness really quick, then that shows that your immune system is strong. It was able to fight those bacteria or that virus or whatever it was. If you're out for weeks on end, then this shows that you have a weak immune system. And this means that you likely need to make some changes in your lifestyle, healthy lifestyle changes. The other thing is that when we get sick, a lot of times we want to sit on a couch, wrap ourselves up in a blanket and order a pizza, and do nothing and really maybe take medications, which I want to get your thoughts on in a second. But really, I think what you need to do is actually, try to stimulate, recovery. So you want to move a little bit. You want to try to eat the foods and the supplements that you mentioned, rather than just kind of rolling up in a ball and eating what isn't good for you. You got to use your tools to sort of help power your immune system.
I agree. Like, rest is so key, but like you said, do the garlic. Like, you could make a juice or make a hot tea with garlic, lemon, cayenne, and raw honey. Ginger. These are cayenne and ginger help to stimulate. They are thermogenic. They stimulate heat in the body, which increases your metabolism, which is why having a fever is actually a good thing. A fever is a sign of a very healthy person. Not 100% of the time, but 99.9% of the time, a fever is your body's way of fighting an infection. So that's why when you're asking me about medications, I am very cautious. So I'm a parent, I have a 3-year-old, and I'm extremely cautious about, bringing a fever down, both for myself. I had one fever this year. My daughter brings home so many germs. And, like you were saying, once in a while I do get, like in the spring, I ended up getting I actually got laryngitis in the spring. I haven't had that since I was a kid. And I got a fever with it. And my fever got up to, 103. And I just let the fever take its course. And because the fever, I knew that was my body amping up to fight the infection. So what I always say as a parent, if your child is really uncomfortable, they're not sleeping, they're super cranky, you're uncomfortable as a parent, then that's when you administer whatever it is you give your kid, Advil or Tylenol. But if your child is not actually uncomfortable and you take their temperature and they have a high temperature, it's actually okay for them to have a high temperature. What I would suggest you do in Canada, it's just in Ontario, we have something called telehealth where you can phone a nurse for free just to, as a parent, it just makes you feel better. And so if my daughter does get something and I don't want to rush her to the hospital or to the pediatrician, I just call telehealth just to kind of tame the crazy, anxious mom inside my brain. And 9 times out of 10, I'm not taking her to the doctor. Rest, get rest. If you want to give your child something to bring the fever down, do it, but you don't have to. So usually I don't. And then when it comes to antibiotics, antibiotics are a big problem. They're one of the main reasons why people can't get well after they get a bad cold or flu, because their gut microbiome is been destroyed after years and years of taking, courses of antibiotics. I mean, one prescription of a broad spectrum antibiotic can wipe out your good bacteria for months. And for people who, say in their teen years were taking antibiotics for acne, for example, again, that can take years to build it back up. It doesn't mean if you have, if you're listening to this and you're like, man, Joy, I've been on antibiotics my whole life for ear infections and this and that. It doesn't mean that, there's no turning back, because there definitely is. But what I would suggest to your listeners is this. If you have a sore throat and you feel like you're swallowing glass and you feel better going to the doctor, go to the doctor, ask them to confirm that it is actually a bacterial infection. You do have strep. They can do really quick tests now to tell you if you have that bacteria. If you do in fact have a bacterial infection, then that is the case where it may be a good idea to take an antibiotic. But more often than not, whether you have a bronchitis or just a common cold or flu, it's almost always a virus. So, when you go to the doctor, just really ask your doctor, like, are you 100% sure that this antibiotic is suited to me right now? And I think more often than not, I say those things. I mean, I had a bronchitis like 6 years ago and they wanted to give me antibiotics. And I said to him, bronchitis, is that not a virus? The doctor said, yeah, most likely. And I said, so why are you giving me an antibiotic? He was like, oh, just to rule out all possibilities. Well, of course, I just ripped up that prescription and I never took it and I got better. So I think in some cases, antibiotics and different medications can be very important. But I think more often than not, we have to be in charge of our own health. We're responsible for our own best health, and we have to push back and say, hey, is this really entirely necessary? Should I actually be taking this?
Mm-hmm. I love that. Antibiotics should be your last, your last resort. Try everything else first, because it's an uphill battle after that to try to get your gut back to where it needs to be to remain healthy, because there's a good chance that if you take an antibiotic, well, a few months down the road, you're probably going to get sick again. You're going to get sick often if you do that. So you want to keep your gut nice and strong, as we spoke about earlier in this podcast. And actually, the other thing with that is, medications like ibuprofen and stuff, they also affect your gut bacteria.
Yes.
So in a similar way that antibiotics do, which I just learned actually this year. So even, these, over-the-counter, drugs or medications that we take can be very harmful to your gut, can be harmful to your recovery. So, make those last resort. Try the natural way first. Try to support your immune system and your body's natural ability to heal itself. And if that doesn't work, then okay, now you can resort to medication, but only as a last resort.
But I think also too with kids, I think that definitely I agree with adults, but I think you just have to be a little bit more careful with kids, because say if your child has like meningitis and you don't, that's why I really like being able to call like telehealth and talk to them about what the symptoms are. Or, if you do, look for a pediatrician who is, well-versed in functional medicine or is interested in natural health. So their, first response isn't to recommend an antibiotic. And like you were saying, like Tylenol, terrible for your liver. Ibuprofen, like all those drugs like Advil are terrible for your gut health. They actually wear down the mucosal lining of your gut. That's why a lot of people who, take aspirin every single day end up having ulcers, because they essentially have a hole in their gut. So it can cause things, taking these pain medications regularly can cause things like ulcer, leaky gut, and a lot of problems. Those are really good points you bring up. And there's a lot of natural ways to combat, a headache. When you have a headache from having a cold, like maybe just let that headache take its natural course. We've gotten so used to not being okay with pain or fever. And like I said, a lot of times it's our body is just fighting the infection. So we don't want to suppress the symptom.
Mm-hmm. It's a very good point. Now, if someone in your family gets sick, let's say it's your daughter or it's you, is there anything, what should the rest of the family be doing that's living in the house with them? What should they be doing precautionary to sort of make sure that they don't get sick as well? Is there any suggestions or tips that you have when one member of the family gets sick to support the rest of the family?
Yeah, so if my daughter gets sick, and she's 3, so she does get sick, and I actually like the fact she gets sick because it's building up her immune system, because you have immune cells that actually have a memory. Some of them have memory. So certain viruses and bacteria that come into your body, once your body fights it off, then these cells have memory and they know exactly how to identify that invader in the future. But you know what? It's the simplest thing in my home. You know what I'm obsessed with doing? Washing my hands. I know it's like the simplest thing to do, and I tell my husband all the time, but when Vienna, our daughter's name is Vienna, when she gets sick, every time, because it's hard, like with little ones, they're like all over you. I just really make sure that I don't touch my eyes, I don't have my hands near my mouth, And if I do need to like rub my eye or something, I wash my hands. And then I just make sure that I'm taking immune boosting. Even if I'm not sick, that's when I'm taking the elderberry. I've got the bee propolis. I really like the propolis, the spray. That's nature's antibiotics, so I'm using that. I drink a ton of water. And that's basically it. But I say like the thing that really pops out in my mind is I just really make sure I wash my hands, because that's how, you know, you're spreading infection by, you know, you get they sneeze or you touch someone's hand and then you rub your eye, you can get sick if you don't have a really strong immune system. Or like with little ones, even if you do have a strong immune system, but you're just like, you know, you're just getting so much of their bodily fluids on your face, it's more likely that you can get sick. So those are just some things that we do in our family.
That's a good point. I mean, if someone in your family is sick, then treat it like you're sick right now.
Yeah,
so start with the supplements, start with kind of everything, because there's a good chance, you know, even if you're washing your hands, I mean, also the person that's sick should be then washing their hands, because they're going to touch doorknobs, which then you're going to touch. So it's like, it's a big mess, right? There's a good chance you're probably going to get some of the bacteria. So it's time for you to step it up and get that immune system rolling. Now, one of the questions, I had two questions that I've chosen from Instagram. I actually asked our followers if they had any questions for you.
Oh, great.
And one of them was actually a really good question from @pottingshed_beauty. The question is, what do you think of the flu vaccine for children, and does Vienna have it?
No, I'm so anti-flu vaccine. It's actually not proven to be scientifically effective. And they have to guess, the research, the scientists have to guess every season what they think the big strain is going to be. So therefore, they're making a new vaccine every single season, and you simply don't have time for clinical trials and to test this vaccine out to make sure it's even safe. So I'm very anti-flu vaccine. I actually have a whole webinar where I talk about this. If you go on joycehealth.com and you search natural ways to boost your immune system, I have a webinar that you can download where I actually talk about all of the evidence. Is it effective? Is it safe? Like, the vast majority of the studies are deeply flawed when it comes to the flu vaccine. And I really don't recommend it. And I know it's a very polarizing topic for people, and people can get really upset about it. But I just come back to the science. The science is not telling us that it is something that there's just more research needed. There's too much that we don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. I'm glad you shared that. Now, this doesn't mean that other vaccines aren't good. Don't confuse that. We're talking specifically the flu vaccine here, just so that everyone
vaccine. Exactly.
Flu vaccine, and just so everyone's aware.
Yeah. And with other vaccines, my answer is always just do your own research. Yeah. You know what? Don't do what I do, or don't do what your mother says. Do your own research. And even with the flu vaccine, I'm like putting my, thoughts out there into the world and saying, I don't recommend it. But actually, you know what? Just ignore what I say and go and do your own research so that, you can make an informed decision about the flu vaccine. If you decide to take it because you've done all this research, great. But don't just decide to take it or not decide to take it because someone else says. Do your own research, and then you can feel confident that you're making the right decision for yourself and your family.
I love that. Empower yourself.
Yes.
So important. So important. Okay, we have another question from an Instagram follower, and we kind of touched on this, so I don't know if you have any more to add to it, but it's from @k.aaronwhite. What supplements do you recommend to help prevent colds and flus? Are there any additional ones on top of what we've already talked about?
So the vitamin D, the probiotics, those are the two that I recommend taking every day. Mushrooms, there's different supplements with mushrooms, like reishi mushrooms, which are very, very good.
Okay.
I would say, be careful not to overload your body with different supplements. I think it's important to work with a practitioner to find out what your unique needs are. For example, this person who's asking if you're on the birth control pill, then you should be taking a B complex vitamin, because the birth control pill lowers your different B vitamins, B6, B12, and there's certain B vitamins that are really important for the immune system. So, the two that always come out to me top of mind are always vitamin D and probiotics, but there's a lot more beyond that. I think you just need to, work with a practitioner to figure out what would be best for you.
Yeah. And then look at your diet first, right? Always look at the
Yes.
diet
Yeah.
before you're going to look at supplementation. I mean,
Yes.
everyone wants to
Yes.
resort to that because it's just a quick fix. But if you're not eating a lot of leafy greens and a lot of different, cruciferous vegetables and, potentially some fruits, then, you need to start there first and get
Yes.
your vitamins and minerals from there. And then if
Food
that's still
first.
not working, then look into supplements afterwards. But always look at the diet first. Now, I know you're huge on recipes. You've got millions and millions of recipes, and I see you on Instagram cooking up all these crazy foods, which is amazing. So I just want to get your recommendation. Do you have a favorite recipe, whether it's like a cocktail of drink or maybe it's some sort of meal that is like your most powerful immune boosting recipe? What would it be?
I would say it's probably just a soup. Because I love soups for boosting the immune system, to prevent the cold and flu, and also when you're sick. So my fall vegetable soup, my fall harvest vegetable soup, or my mushroom soup. Now the fall harvest vegetable soup, I would recommend making it with a chicken or a beef broth to get the most immune boosting benefits. But obviously you can use a vegetable broth as well. But yeah, I would say that, or my super easy turmeric ginger tea latte is also great.
Super easy turmeric ginger
tea latte.
Ginger tea latte.
Or just if you go to Joyce, I'll just look up ginger turmeric tea. I can send you the links actually if you're
we'll put them in the show notes for sure. Yeah, turmeric is an amazing thing. I think that's something that everyone needs to have as a staple for a spice because it's so good.
Yes. Oh, it's amazing.
Okay, so I have one question left for you. It's the question I ask all the guests that come on the show. Before I do, did we miss anything about the cold and flu season that you want to make sure that others know?
I think just the final thing that I didn't talk a lot about is just drinking more water. Really simple, because you want to get waste out of your body. You want to detoxify well. You want to enhance detoxification of the liver, cleansing of the kidneys. So just drink lots of water, whether you're sick or not, but especially when you get sick, because if you have a cold or flu, your body's producing a lot more mucus to actually that's all, the white blood cells are leaving your body. And so like the dead white blood cells, like when you blow your nose, so you need to make sure that you increase your hydration.
Good point. Yeah, I literally, if you don't have a water bottle that you just carry around with you at all times,
water.
like it doesn't go, I don't go anywhere without a water bottle with me. It's just, I've done it for years and it's attached to me. It's like my phone. So important. So I like that. The hydration is key. Okay, so first, if others want to find you on the interweb, where do they do it? This is your chance to kind of give all your, where you are on social media, your website, all that kind of stuff.
Great. So you can find me on Instagram at Joyous Health. So it's JOYOUS Health. And I share my recipes and my videos. You can find me on YouTube. My channel is Joyous Health 1, like number 1. And of course, my blog. My blog is joyoushealth.com. And I share 2 to 3 new posts per week, recipes, just natural living tips. You can subscribe to my newsletter, and then every week you get all my latest content and all the different events. I speak I do a lot of public free events, speaking events. I'm actually speaking at the Big Carrot next week. I'm at, so there's lots of events I'm doing, and you can find out about that.
Awesome. And I'll put those links on the show notes as well so you can get to it. But go check out her stuff. She's got lots of amazing recipes, things that you can't even think of making. Like that one cheese. I was watching the
cashew cheese.
Cashew cheese, yeah.
So easy to make.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so final question for you. So, I mean, you've been along a health journey for years now, and you've learned so much going to school and doing your own research. If you were to go back to day one and you were to, forget everything that you currently know about health and wellness, what would be and start your whole health journey all over again? What would be the one thing that you would want to know, or the one thing that you would tell yourself if you were just starting over?
Oh, I would tell myself to stop drinking milk, to get the dairy out of my diet. It caused so much. Do you know that there was like 6 months where I actually wore a tensor bandage on my wrist because I had so much inflammation in my wrist. When I stopped drinking cappuccinos, within a day, it vanished. Never came back again. Just from drinking milk. So, you know, I grew up drinking milk. That's what you did at dinner. You drank milk. And, you know, my parents were great cooks, and they really cared about the health of my brother and I. So, you know, I don't want to say anything bad about them giving us milk. That's just what they did in the 80s.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wish I cut out milk much sooner. It would have helped me greatly. Because beyond just having to wear the stupid tensor bandage, I had a lot of gut issues, bloated, constipated, and cutting dairy out really made a difference for me.
Yeah, and I think it will for a lot. Actually, on my elimination diet, so far everything I've introduced, I've been fine with except for dairy. Yeah, dairy was a bit of a struggle, which is weird because I used to drink dairy every single day too. Growing up, I always had milk. And then I introduced gluten yesterday, and so this morning.
Oh, how'd that go?
At first, I thought it was okay, and then I had another serving of it later that day, and I struggled last night and this morning. So I don't think it was too good at all.
Did you feel like tired?
I did, yeah. Difficult sleeping, just like, you know, gas and bloating in the stomach, which, you know, when you're on elimination diet for the first 3 weeks, when you've eliminated, you don't feel any of that. You feel so clean and clear. So yeah, you can tell quite a difference from introducing gluten. So
I bet.
See you later, gluten. Not that I really eat much of it anyway, but okay, awesome. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us here and sharing, you know, I think something that's so important, something that, you know, everyone needs to know. We struggle with it a lot. You know, you see a lot of people this time of the year getting sick. So it's great to have you on to share, you know, all of your thoughts and everything that you've learned in the past. So, you know, again, thank you for coming on, and thank you for everything that you're doing, for sharing all your recipes and sharing your journey with everyone. You know, it's people like you that, you know, help others with their journey. So, you know, I think we all appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for having me on.